And welcome to another fun episode of Photoshop Party, where we're going to party hardy like it's 1999. Oh, wait, no, we're in 2000 now, aren't we? No, 2020. I don't know. We're somewhere around here. If it was 1999, we'd be using Photoshop 4.0, I believe, or thereabouts. And I remember 4.0 vividly. I started on Photoshop 2.5, opened it up and said, what do I do now? Had no
About when I
clue.
started, back in the early 90s.
Yep, back in the floppy days for those that have been around a while. So today we are going to cover layers and masking and easy stuff like that. But before we do, let me open this one up. And as a reminder, there is a Photoshop class coming up in June of 2022, June 5 to 12, Photoshop 0 to 60. So basically, we're going to touch on all the tools, how to use them properly, the latest and greatest and best things that are working in Photoshop now. Be a fun class. If you're well above me, you got Richard Sturdivant, you've got Sandra Pierce, Randy Van Dynen, Joe Glida. There's all kinds of great classes to take, so you don't want to miss out. West Coast School is going to be, being that it's the first time in 3 years we've had West Coast School, you know it's going to be magic when we come back. So you definitely want to go there. Let me go ahead and close that. Command W to close and open up the first image that we're going to work on today. And everybody can see my screen now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Let me get rid of Nick filters. Those are gone. And basically, I have this set up into layers. Starting with the first layer, which is the crust. And then we added a little bit of sauce to go with it, some cheese, some pepperoni, more pepperoni, because you got to have lots of pepperoni on there, some green onions and stuff like that. Where do I want to go with this? I'm going to start with masking. I'm going to mask the peppers a little bit, because if you see, when I did the peppers, I didn't quite do a very good job taking them off the table. I could use the eraser tool off of the green there and go E for eraser. Maybe. There it is. And go in and erase. But the problem is, once I erase it, if I decide later on that I want to fix it, I can't fix it. Once you get a few steps ahead, you got to go back to fix it. And if you go too far and screw it up, then you can't fix it easily without going back and starting over. So we'll go back to the layer mask, and I'm going to hit B for brush and D for default. That gets me the default colors, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so I can fit it in here and just go around. Aha. Make sure you paint on the mask. And what happened was, my box surrounding here, the thumbnail, I had the box around that, and I wanted it around my layer mask because I was painting on the thumbnail instead of the mask. So let's go ahead and make sure I'm at 100% opacity and normal. Otherwise, it's not going to show up. And to hit 100% opacity, all I have to do is hit 0, and it takes it to 100%. If I hit 5, it's at 50%. If I hit 6, it's 60%. If you need like a special number like 73%, you hit 73. So feel free to do that shortcut, and remember that I'm the one that taught you that. Okay, make sure my brush is small enough to get in here. And I'm using a soft edge brush. I could use a hard edge brush. So I'll right click, go to 100% hardness, and get along the edges there. And sometimes I can't see when there's shadows along the peppers, I can't see what I'm doing for sure. So I got to be careful when I do that. If you want to do a straight line, you click the brush one time and then you hold the shift key and it draws a straight line. God bless you. And you just paint out what you don't want. And I can sit here and go over it over and over, but I'm not gonna, because you don't want to see me just retouch that out. One of the other things, if you do 50%, is make a big brush so you can see what I'm doing. I set the brush opacity to 50% by hitting the 5 key. And you can see that it takes out a portion of it. If I do it again, it takes out another portion, do it again. It never gets to 100% opacity. It's 50% of 50% of 50% of 50% of 50%. So if you do it 10%, which is 1 on the keyboard, and we'll do this, there's 1, 2 swipes, 20% sort of, keep going back and forth. 10 times is still not 100%. So you got to be careful when you're doing that. And if you decide, oops, I screwed up, just hit the X key. I'm going to take it to 100%. And X exchanges the colors from black to white and just paint it back in. That's the cool thing about using mask versus the eraser tool, is you can paint it back in if you decide you don't want to take it out. Makes a big heck of a difference. Let's do a mask on our pepperonis, which is the next layer. In fact, let's add another layer of pepperoni just for fun. So I'll go Command J, which copies the pepperoni. And we'll do V for move and move them out to where we can see them. And we'll do another layer just for fun. Whoops. Command J again. And we'll drag them over to the left-hand side so I have pepperonis coming out all over the place. The pepperonis aren't perfect, so let's go ahead and make it unperfect. We'll add a mask. B for brush. And let's see what kind of weird brushes I got up here. Nothing that'll work for that. Okay. So we'll go and we'll do a star brush just for fun. Hit X to make sure we're in black. You can see we're taking a little bit of the edge off the pepperoni there. A little bit of edge off of the pepperoni there. So it's not a perfect pizza. Then we'll go down to the layer, which the pepperoni is on the right, and take some off of there. Oops, I'm painting in black. Why is that? Because I didn't add a mask. Command Z. I never make that mistake except on purpose to show you guys that it does happen. And you believe me, right? Okay, you don't believe me. Fine, be that way. Well, this is a good way to show what layers are. When you do your pizza, you see the different layers on there. And then what we can also do is we'll have just the pepperonis. I'm going to put the pepperonis into a group. So I'm going to select all the pepperoni layers, all 4 layers. So I'm going to hold click on the first one and then shift click on the last one, or you can command or control click on all the layers one at a time. And then we're going to hit command or control G, which makes a group. And obviously you want to label your group and we'll call it pepperoni. And you can see inside the group, I have 4 pepperonis. So I can turn the pepperoni on and off all at one time. So if I decide I want to do something with that group, I can either open it up and do it layer at a time, or I can hit the pepperoni group layer, add a mask, and paint with my brush anywhere in that group. It doesn't have to be on that particular layer. And I can also move the whole group at one time by hitting the V key and dragging it around. If you decide you want to work on the peppers again, which I'm going to do, and I change from black to gray, so I'll go to luminance and hit 50%. Which makes it a gray color. As you can see, it's gray now. 119, 119, 119 RGB colors. So that's your gray. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see what it does. Let's go to a soft round brush, B for brush. I said B for brush, thank you. And we'll do a soft round brush. And I just changed the colors again because it's automatically going to white for some reason. So let's go ahead and go luminance L 50%. Click OK. Make it small enough so it fits in the scene. And this is going to be painting at gray at 100%. And again, I'm on the layer, not the mask. And I did it again. It changed to black and I wanted 50%. Just to show you. This is at 50%, so it's gray. And a lot of the stuff's coming through, but not fantastic. And we go to black, which is default. You can see the difference between the two layers. So that is layers in a nutshell. Any questions on layers and masks on that part so far? Okay, moving on, don't save. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Then I'm going to share my desktop so you can see what I do in Bridge. And you can see Bridge right now?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
I have 5 or 6 images, I think it's 5 images of a sunset where the eagles are flying around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these 5 images, and I am going to open them up in a layer or in layers in one file. So I go in Bridge, I'll go to Tools, down to Photoshop to load files into Photoshop layers. So in Bridge, it's Tools at the top, Photoshop at the bottom of that file layer, and then about halfway down is Load Files into Photoshop Layers. Click OK. And you get the spinning wheel of death saying, I don't want to play with Zoom. And now I have 5 layers. So you can see the different layers. And if you notice, as you go through the layers, the trees are moving along with having birds in there. So how do I fix having the trees moving around like they are? It's really easy. I'm going to hold the shift key down, select the top layer, hold the shift key down, select the bottom layer, which selects all 5 layers. I'm going to go to Edit, Auto Align Layers. And what that's going to do is line up my layers for me so everything's fairly straight. I'm going to use auto because why not? It works. Click OK. And you can see at the top, I'll zoom in for you. There's a spot where it lined up the layers because they didn't all match up. So there's a spot there that is not going to work for me, which is okay. I want to add the birds in here to all the pictures. So what I'll do is on the top 4 layers, I'm going to select the top 4 layers same way, hold the shift key down after selecting one, and it selects all of them. If you want to skip a layer, what you can do is grab the first layer and then command or control click on the layers that you want. Well, I want them all, so I'll just shift click on all of them. And I have the top 4 layers selected. I want to bring in the birds. The fastest way is not to mask it, but to change the layer mode from normal to darken. And what that does, it brings in all the birds for me. And you can see there's a few birds flying around. There's a couple of birds like right here that are really close together that are the same bird. You can tell it's the same bird almost. I want to find which layer that's on. There it is. And so what I'll do is I will make sure we're on the right layer, add a layer mask, and I will hit B for brush, and I'll mask him out. And you can see it didn't affect the other layers, just the layer that he was on. So you can see the area that I took out, and if I hold the shift key down, it turns it on and off, turns the mask on and off. If I hold the option key down, it just shows you what was masked and what wasn't masked. If I hold the command or control key down, it shows you a selection of what I masked out. So I command D to deselect. And now I've got all those birds added, and half of them, actually 3/4 of them are the same bird, but you'd never know because they're in a different mode of flight. So we'll go to the top layer, we'll go crop, and we'll do 8x10 to make it a smaller crop. I don't want 8x10, I want 10x8. So instead of going up here and changing things, I can hit the arrows, switch between height and width, or when the crop tool is in the selection mode like this, I just hit the X key and it switches it. So I can go back and forth between all the different crops there. 8x10, click, command 0, and you can see I got too much at the top, so we'll hit crop again. And we will hold the option key or alt key, which will drag it in towards the middle and cut off the top part that was taken out. And that's gone. And things just work so easy for us that way. But I'm missing a bird in the left hand about 3/4 of the way across. I need to add a couple of birds there. So what I will do is I will do what's called the claw. Jim DiVitale taught me this. It's shift, option or alt, command or control, E like in Edward. And you can see it put a layer at the very top. And with that, you have to be on the top layer for it to do it. If you do from the bottom layer and I did the claw, it would just add a layer underneath it, all the rest of them. So you don't want that. So we'll go to the top layer, shift, option or alt, command or control, E like in Edward, and it adds a new layer. Basically what it did, it flattened the image and put a layer on top for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bird and I'm going to make Command J, which put him on his own layer. Command V, Command C to copy him, Command V to paste, and I'm going to move him up to the left-hand area, and you can see what is done here, which is okay. I'm not worried about that yet. And I'm going to Command T, which is free transform, right click on it, and I'm going to flip horizontal. The reason why I flipped him horizontal is so that he's not the same as the one on the left hand or on the right hand side. Command T one more time just to make him a little bit bigger. And then we're going to change from normal to darken, and it didn't do a great job. So if I hit Command or Control and click on the thumbnail, that gets me a selection of him. I can make a mask and just kind of paint around him a little bit and mask him out. And then added that bird in the left-hand side there. And I could add any of the birds, like I want to take the bird that is right here. I have two that are side by side and they look kind of ridiculous. So we will do a lasso. I changed my mind. I want to do it a different way. I'm going to go to Object Selection Tool, and it's set to lasso. I'm going to select him, and it selected a little bit more than I wanted. So Option click and drag around. Get rid of the extra selection that's on there. And I'm going to do Command or Control X, which is cut. Okay, it did do that. It didn't cut him all the way out though, but that's okay. We'll fix that in a second. And we'll drag him over where we added the other bird and paste him. So Command V to paste, and it puts it in the center of the image. So we'll just move him over to here. And we might as well rotate him as well. So Command T to free transform, right click, flip horizontal, hit enter, and he's fixed. And I want to get rid of the guy over here. So I'm going to do a lasso. And I'm going to hit F3. For me, F3 is, let's do this. F3 is my content aware fill. So it just made them disappear. So I'm going to show you the shortcut without the, whoops, did it again. Okay. Without using the action, I'm going to show you the shortcut. So he's selected right now. I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, Content Aware Fill. He's gone. And then Command D to deselect. That's what the action does. It does it automatically for you. So all you have to do is hit F3, boom, he's gone. These two together, too close, F3, gone. And it does the content aware fill for you. So actions are your friends. They're easy to make. We've shown them a couple times. We'll do them again in the future sometime and make things happen. Any questions? No
Yes, I
questions?
have a question.
I have an answer, maybe.
So on the top layers, you use darken to make the birds show up. What if you used a different type of blending mode? And will darken always work? Does it just depend on your scene?
99% of the time darken works, but let's go ahead and share screen again, and we'll do Photoshop. And I'll go to history, and I'll go up to where it started, and it should have okay, I've got all my layers. They're set to darken. Let's go ahead and select all, and we'll put them back to normal mode. And if I used, say, multiply for the layers, you would see that it would darken all of the image, compacting the colors together. The reason why I use darken, it takes the darker color, which is the birds, because they're darker than everything else, and makes them come through each layer. Let's try edit auto blend layers. I don't think that'd do it, but we'll try it. Obviously a lot slower. And I mean a lot slower. And I'm having troubles with Photoshop today. I don't know if it's because it's August or what the... Okay, so it did blend the layers for me. So that worked as well. Let's undo auto blend. And go back to my layers, all 5 layers. And then the darken mode seems to work the easiest. You have color burn, linear burn, darker color. Darker color works as well. It's almost the same as darken, because it takes the darker color and has it come through. If we did lighten, it would take the birds out.
Get rid of all your birds. Okay.
Get rid of all the birds. Overlay messes with the grays, the midtones, but it does some pretty cool stuff. It also brought in pin light, it brought the birds in. Hard mix, weird. Exclusion.
Wow, it looks like everything died. But now
Yeah,
you see the birds
exactly.
in the trees.
Yeah. But you can also see a ring around the trees there as well. Subtract, divide, hue just does the one layer. Saturation does a different layer. Then luminosity and saturation do different layers. Weird.
Huh.
I've never done that before. So does that answer your question?
It does. That's very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, you betcha. And the best way to figure out what you're doing with these is just play with it and have fun and try something. It never hurts to try something different. Other questions? Going once, going twice? Okay, I'm going to turn off the recording so you can ask your questions.